Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank you and the ranking member for assembling an excellent panel. Your testimony has been really terrific, and you should know that you have exceeded the bar that most of our committees, so thank you for doing that. And I also want to thank you for letting my two little daughters who come today, and they've been reasonably well behaved, so I'll thank them as well. Dr. Newell, I wanted to start with you because there was, I think, in a period of very difficult political conversation over the last 2 years across the country and certainly in the state of Colorado, the one thing that people could rally behind, no matter what town hall meeting they were in, was the idea that we ought to break our addiction to foreign oil, especially oil that we imported from the Persian Gulf. And I think, like the ranking member, I believe we need to move beyond rhetoric on this question and start to think about solutions to this problem in a way that won't disrupt our domestic economy. I believe that rural America, rural Colorado, may be the best place for the reasons Mr. Townsend stated, to look to gain an understanding of how vulnerable our addiction to oil makes us. And in rural areas where work can be 50 miles away from home and the mechanic 10 miles in the opposite direction, a fluctuation of just a few cents, as we've heard, in gas prices quickly can drive up the day-to-day cost of living. It might mean choosing between driving to work and paying the heating bill, or for a farmer, it may mean running over budget even before getting seeds into the ground because the fields must be plowed regardless of the cost of fuel. So I'm glad this panel is here with a diversity of views on this. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Newell, because I know you've written extensively on energy policy options even before your tenure at EIA. As you know, the DOE estimates that the United States has between 2 and 3% of the world's oil reserves, yet we consume about a quarter of the world's oil. Since the price of oil is set on a world market, any new domestic development can easily be offset by a reduction of output from OPEC, which clearly creates an unsustainable arrangement situation. And I wonder what recommendations you have for Congress to reduce gas prices in the near term and in the long term. Because in the near term, we know, and I come from a state with abundant wind, abundant sun, abundant natural gas, abundant biofuel production. But in 2004, the EIA analysis told us that opening up protected areas to new oil drilling might reduce gas prices in America by 3 to 4 cents, and those savings wouldn't come till 2027. So has there been a change in that estimate at all? And if not, what are your suggestions for how we do this in the near term?
Well, you, you correctly point out that the oil market is a global market. The U.S. is a significant consumer of oil. In terms of production of oil, U.S. produces currently about 11% of global liquid supply. So in terms of understanding the price impacts of particular actions that could be taken either on the demand side or the supply side, it's really important to put that in a global context. And so the typical types of actions that are discussed are usually measured in the order of hundreds of thousands of barrels per day, or big ones, maybe 1 million barrels per day, which is a significant amount of oil, which is for sure. But in a global market which is close to 90 million barrels per day, these tend to be a very small fraction, and they tend to take place over an extended period of time. And so trying to identify a near-term price impact from actions that are a small increment in a global market is quite challenging. We typically see oil price fluctuations on a daily basis of 1 to 2%. At sometimes it's significantly greater than that. And so trying to separate out the signal from the noise of these actions is very difficult if one focuses on prices.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about over the longer term?
Well, over the longer term, I mean, certainly actions, either policy actions or other market developments that reduce demand, or actions that increase supply, will both tend to point in the direction of lower prices. The key question is, what is the magnitude of the price change, which is going to depend upon the magnitude of the action, again, put in a global context. And so, any number of actions, when added up across many different sources of supply or across many different sources of demand reduction will have an influence on market prices over a period of time. But again, it's not just what occurs in the United States, and it's not just what occurs from one individual action. It's really the aggregation of all these effects that will, in the end, determine global oil prices.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.